This week we'll be entering the month of August, our National Women's Month, the month of gratitude, appreciation, and love. And what better way to kickstart this incredible month than with a special edition show for you? With the successes, empowerment, and movements like never before, it should be that the women of our generation should be the strongest, most fulfilled, and well off compared to the past, right? But how is it that instead of being whole, it seems that they are shattered? Doesn't make sense, does it? Join us this coming Friday at 3 p.m. for the special edition of Woman to Woman and find out the why behind the biggest question of our time. We are women. We are brave, strong, capable, unique. We are Women to Women.
Good afternoon, South Africa, and a very blessed Women's Day and Women's Month for all of us. That is for all of us. And of course, if you are on the other side of the world, but you join us every Friday, you are part of our celebration. Today, we have a very joyous but reflective topic to bring about because we are going to ponder from 1956 up to 2022, and we're talking about 66 years, how women have developed and conquered a place in our society. Before we move on with our reflections and analysis of today, our program is very technical and it is very up to date. We want you to watch this promo just to make a real recap of the purpose of the holiday on the 9th of August and what has actually changed.
Women's Day marks the anniversary of the Great Women's March of 1956, where women marched to the Union buildings to protest against having to carry passbooks. And each year, 9 August is celebrated to pay tribute to the generations of women whose struggle laid the foundation for the progress that we have today. A passbook was a document of permission which allowed people of color to enter restricted areas. Approximately 20,000 women marched to the Union buildings in Pretoria with a petition containing more than 100,000 signatures against the country's pass laws that required South Africans who are defined as black under the Population Restriction Act to carry a pass. The 1956 protest saw mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends who decided enough was enough and come together to initiate change. Not only did they march, they remained standing outside the Union buildings in silence for 30 minutes in a non-violent and extremely powerful display of unity. Many changes have been conquered in education, career, society in general, and so many other areas. National Women's Day in South Africa draws attention to many important issues that women in South Africa still face, such as domestic violence, discrimination, education for girls, and so many others. Wathinta bafazi, wathinta mbokodo. The message was clear. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. This phrase has become the key representative of the strength and courage of South African women to keep moving forward.
Let me take the opportunity to invite you all for our great celebration on the 9th of August, 10 o'clock, broadcasting from Park Station. After such a long time, 2 years, we are going to gather together, get our traditional attires, because that's how we celebrate Women's Day in South Africa. Traditional attire, and we are going to have a special blessing on the 9th of August. All our provincial and regional headquarters will host the same meeting, but of course, if you can make your way to Park Station, come, gather with us to celebrate in high spirits so many achievements in our society, particularly for us women. Starting with our topic of today, the first reflection we made is, as the title of the program, Whole or Shattered? So what is making our women fulfilled in our society?
I can think of one thing, education. Because we're talking about something that happened in 1956, for example. And we had women who were going to the union buildings complaining about the past laws. But those past laws were not just about movement. Freedom of movement that they wanted because they couldn't come to town and all that stuff without a dompas. That's what it was called. So the other thing that was a real serious problem for them was that their children were not getting proper education because the segregation laws, the urban areas laws, had to do with a lot with education. They didn't want Black people to be able to have access to good education because they wanted to be able to segregate them in a way that they will keep them under their thumb.
And we had a name for the kind of education that our Black communities could have. What was it?
Bantu education.
Bantu education.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Just teach them. Just teach them how to write their name.
Yeah. And because this is how it was structured. They wanted to make sure, the Boers wanted to make sure that Black people could become very good garden boys, very good woodwork people, very good maids, and that's basically what they wanted. So if, for example, you were in the areas that were meant for Black people, you could be a police officer, you could be a nurse, you could be a teacher. And for you to see how the minds of people had been changed, when we were growing up, those were seriously good professions. When somebody was a nurse, it was top position. But that's what they wanted. They didn't want them to become the doctor. They didn't want the person to become their advocate, for example. But things have changed in South Africa, especially for us women, because women now have better access to education. And if you look at the statistics of universities, for example, universities, colleges, more women are graduating than men. We have a 0.2% surplus of women in the workplace, for you to have an idea. And this has to do with education. they have better education, which means that they're better versed and they're better able to get better jobs. And because of that, they can be in the workplace. They can even just crack through that ceiling that used to be there in the days when these women went marching. Let's be honest. If somebody doesn't have a good job, everything else just dilapidates. Because if you don't have a good job, it means you don't have a good salary. If you don't have a good salary, it means the quality of your life is not going to be good at all. So better access to education is one of those things that I believe has helped women so much, because it has helped them take better care of their families, better care of their children. They can give their children a better education. And it's just a snowball effect. If you have a better education, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a better job, but it does give you better chances of having a better life for you and your family. And it's that gift that keeps on giving, because if you get a good job because you have a good education, you can do the same for your children, who will do the same for their children. From the time when the day that we're celebrating started to where we are now, women are in a much better position. They have better access to education. We know that the education system in the country is not where it should be, but yes, we do have a better access to education, and it has changed the lives of women and made them a little bit more whole than they were before.
And we feel ourselves privileged, because when we compare our situation to the women before 1956, very few of them would have ability to go to school or to claim for a profession. And today it's available for the majority of our women in society. We groom our girls to go to school. We encourage our girls from young age to go to school. And that was a big conquest for us women in South Africa.
Another contributing factor has been the number of foundations that we have today, and these foundations and companies actually offer scholarships to women in South Africa, and they actually more into getting more women represented.
Let me correct something. To Black women in South Africa, yes. To women of all nations or all cultures in South Africa, because before, it was not like that.
Yes, so they offer them mostly in your science, your technology and engineering and math orientated careers. So now it becomes a good future for young girls, because as Ms. Namezo touched base, when that woman has better education, she's able to take her child, or even if they are unable to, with the available resources that we have today for us, they are able to now let their daughters now further themselves. So that's why today we see our engineers being women, as she touched base on more women being graduated. Nowadays, girls can actually say, I can be a female pilot, and it is okay to do that.
And we
have a lot of them here in South Africa, which is now no longer like a distant dream. We're no longer living in the first Black female to be doing this, but now we're at a generation where it's becoming a norm. So in boardrooms, we are seeing more women as CEOs, we are seeing them as presidents of companies, and that all also comes from the available resources. So I think because people are now getting more educated and have more access to technology, they are able to actually not say, okay, I'm from a poor family, there's nothing I can do, I just need to settle. No, but today they know that they can get funding and resources from all foundations that we have in sectors in the specific companies.
With a variety of options that the women didn't have before. As you said, they were either teachers or nurses. And we compliment and we praise all the teachers and nurses out there. But many women would like to work with numbers, would like to be engineers, and they didn't have that opportunity. And now we have a number of them with certificates and with extracurriculum activities, even in the mining industry, that it was a very male predominant industry. We have women taking a stand in that industry, proving that they can, if they have the ability, the talent for it. So another conquest.
Okay, we also know that back in the days, it was hard for women to have a say in any case. But then in terms of freedom of expression, we see today women, they are able to express themselves without any limitation or fear of being judged or of being even put down. Because today we can be able to practice our faith freely, express and embrace, the faith that we choose, and without any point of, persecution. We can be able to do that. We also see, again, in terms of freedom of expression, if you see that something doesn't serve you right, you are able to express yourself in terms of putting that onto the table and kicking it out of the door because you see that it doesn't serve you right. We also see that women today, they're able to express themselves in terms of, breaking the silence. If something is also, diminishing them, it's compressing them down, they're able to break the silence. And also we see women expressing themselves in terms of family, building up their families, making a positive contribution, and also expressing yourself in terms of choices, making choices in your life, choosing right kind of things that that they will fulfill you as a woman. Sometimes, when you holding on to something, holding on to pain, then it finishes up with you. It eats you up and it really takes away the purpose that, you're supposed to serve. So you'll be able to express yourself as well by, taking away the pain, releasing it, speaking about it, because we have platforms to do that. So this is one power that we women, we hold, and we can make use of it so that we can make a positive impact in the community.
And in many years before 1956, women didn't have that right. Let us remember that the walk was in absolutely silence, and they knew they could have been shot just by the action of being marching without a word. Let us hear the power of freedom of expression from one of the female icons in our South Africa.
Our first icon, Albertina Sisulu. Albertina Sisulu was one of the prominent anti-apartheid leaders, widely referred to as the mother of the nation. Albertina's introduction to politics was directly linked to her relationship with her husband. She dedicated her life to fighting for women and freedom in the country. She was one of those who successfully worked for the international world to place sanctions on South Africa. She passed on in 2011, but her memories and contribution remain, continuing to inspire others.
This is not mine alone. I was not alone. There are those who have died in South Africa, being women, because of the struggle. There are those who died for helping those who are struggling to live. We have children today who are dumped in the veld because their parents are afraid of having those children who have got what we call AIDS. It is our duty, therefore, mothers of this country, to say to it that we look after those children.
But that's not all. What else could we say that we have as women advanced in our society over the 66 years?
The fight for women's rights. That one was the purpose of the march, one of the many purposes of the march, that was to fight for the rights of women. And not only here in South Africa, but all over the world, we know how many women did not have rights. They were only told that, the place for a woman is in the kitchen, so it means that you have to be a homemaker, you can't work, you can't vote, you don't have freedom of expression. So women were limited in so many ways. And women had so many ideas that could make the country better, that could make the companies better, but because they could not say anything, because they did not have rights to say that, they were not allowed to say that. So it is very important now that so many women back in those days, that they started fighting for women's rights. And today we see how amazing that is. We see the benefits of that march today because so many women are now educated. They have access to a lot of things that they did not have back then. And that is because of the fight for women's rights. And this is a proper fight. You know, it's not like competing against men, but it's giving women the right to vote, the right to express themselves, the right to education, the right that they did not have many years ago. And we see how the unemployment rate among women is going a little bit down. Starting from 2020, we see how many women now are in the workforce. And I think it's because of how resilient women of the past are, and they were passing it to their daughters. And now we see how millennials and Gen Zs, they are really fighting for themselves. It's either they get into good companies or they start their own businesses. So this is a good thing that was passed on from that generation, fighting for women's rights, that today we have the freedom that we have because of that fight back then.
And what I think it's very beautiful in all these groups that are fighting for women's rights is that mostly they are women. They are women who are bringing awareness on gender-based violence. They are women who bring awareness of careers, and they are giving back to the society, to other women, what they many times they didn't have, but they conquered, and now they paving the way to success in future and opportunities for young ladies. Maybe sponsoring, maybe training, maybe encouraging with workshops that will benefit young women in the various locations that we have, in the various townships, to prove that they can have a different life. And that is another conquest that we have.
We also have those who are now having more opportunities at the working place, the women. And in South Africa, we have an average of 43% of women who are working. And however...
How beautiful it is,
yes,
when we didn't have the right to work in the past.
But it still is a way to go, because we have 29% only sitting at the boards, the important place in companies. And they always say there is a gap with the pay in the field they are going through. And they compare to a man and a woman. I was doing a little research, and a man can earn 100 rands while a woman will earn only 70 rands. So it's still a way to go. But we see that year after year, they are achieving more and more opportunities. That last year, the first woman just came to own the first mutual bank in South Africa. So it's a huge step. The miners, the pilots, the ones in the marine, now they are everywhere. So the advantage that the women are having now, however, we see we can make much more. We can make it greater, but we need to start investing and giving value to ourselves, because the opportunities are there and we need to fight for it. And that's what the women are doing in nowadays.
We were discussing just during lunchtime about this fact of men earning a better salary than women. And of course, that comes from the understanding that in society in general, it is expected that man is the head of the family and is the breadwinner. However, in South Africa, we have a very atypical situation. We have a society that is predominantly by single mothers or women who are breadwinners. So they are not just fighting for an increasing salary just to be compatible to men and to earn the same, but because they hold similar responsibilities over a household like men. So what they are trying to achieve is that not because they are women, they are going to receive less salary doing the same, because many of them, they are actually the breadwinners in their house.
And most of they are driven by, not just because of the career, but it's to provide for their family. So when they are going to compare a man and a woman fighting for that position, the women always consider to feed their kids, to provide better education, while men most of the time just want a position and want just to conquer a name in the society. And for the women, it's much more about family values than just the position they will occupy in the working place.
You would be astonished to know that in Sub-Saharan Africa, we have the highest percentage of single mothers in the whole world. So when we look at Zimbabwe, 68.8 of mothers, they are single mothers. In South Africa, we are on 43%. So that's why there is a necessity to fight for better salaries, because not only for the sake of we are women and we are empowered, but these women, they are breadwinners. They are the head of households, and they have to provide for their kids.
And many times the women, if you look at a family situation, if there is a man at the head of that family, he has just his nucleus of family. But with women, it's not just the women who are in the workforce. You have grandmothers who are taking care of their children, their children's children, and whoever else among the relatives is going to, let's say, for example, we're in Johannesburg, who's going to want to come to Joburg to find greener pastures? They come and they board there. And then imagine now that person fighting in the workplace to get a salary that is equal to this man who's just taking care of his family. So it's a real fight that women have in the workplace.
We conquered a lot, but there is still a lot to fight for. And while we celebrate the achievements of women in our society, and we are going to hear from another female icon, we are going to ponder on what is making women to be shattered in this very same society. But first, let us celebrate Women's Month with another icon.
Our second icon, Graça Machel. Graça Machel is an international advocate for women and children's rights, working many times with the UN, and is a widow of the former president of Mozambique, Samora Machel, and the former president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. She was named as one of Africa's 50 most powerful women by Forbes in 2020. Graça Machel has dedicated her life to improving the fate of women and children, inspiring hope and building a more just and equitable world for us all.
Only your conviction, your courage, your determination is going to sustain you until you complete. Some told me they want to be doctors. Others, they want to be nurses. They want to be teachers. They want to be, one said she wanted to be a police. There's nothing you cannot do as long as you are decided, you are determined, and all of us here, sitting, the grown-ups here, we have the responsibility to support you.
At the same time, that is amazing to see wonderful testimonies and wonderful women standing out in our society. We have to deal with the things that are putting many down, that are shattering and frustrating many women. What we could say?
I think the first thing that as a South African woman or as a South African, most people will agree with is the issue of gender-based violence. It is something that has been spoken about many times in the media. And I would say that most of us, you know someone, we are affected by it. You know of someone, you know someone personally, maybe someone in your family. Some of us witnessed gender-based violence within, our homes, like relatives. I remember my first time, I didn't know what it was called at the time, but witnessing a family member, a relative of ours, whom I was visiting, and they were laying a hand on their wives. He was laying a hand on his wife, and I was sleeping on the floor, and we woke up, his daughter and I, to the commotion that was happening. And I remember the woman trying to run away and stepping on me, falling onto me, and now she was being hit for hurting me, but she was running away from this family member of ours, and she was just trying to protect herself. I know that she cared about me, she loved me, she had no intention of hurting me, but we were so confused and so hurt, not knowing what to do. So most people have witnessed some sort of violence in their homes, in their neighbor's home, very close in our communities. We see this all the time.
In our own life. That's
Sometimes
the case of Silmar and I.
Yes, in our own lives. So gender-based violence is an issue that really, really shatters and devastates women in this country with all the wonderful things that we mentioned, all the great things that women are achieving. Even those who have achieved all of these things, sometimes they find themselves helpless when it comes to the issue of gender-based violence. And I would say that it's so unfortunate that our country, South Africa specifically, has earned, the rape capital title of the world, because in South Africa, this is so prevalent that somehow, I don't know whether people shut down and don't want to really deal with it, or they feel helpless, they don't know how to deal with it. Or as you mentioned in one of the shows in the past, because it happened to my grandmother, to my mom, to my aunt, who am I to think that I also will not, go through the same thing? What makes me special? Because this is what happens. And even if I speak about it, nothing changes. However, I would say that, and I found something very interesting. So let me define gender-based violence. It's basically any criminal offense. It can be a rape, a sexual assault, incest. It could be statutory rape. And that is basically someone who is an adult dating a person who's a minor. So people will say, oh, we're in a relationship. But if you are having sexual relations with a minor, that is rape, because a minor cannot consent to any sexual act, regardless of how much she may claim or he may claim to love that partner. If you are an adult, you have no business having sexual relations with a child. And those are the kind of things that are under, gender-based violence. And it doesn't always mean that it is physical. It can also be emotional. It can be because emotional abuse it's most of the time it's a stepping stone before we get to the physical level. So this is a big issue in South Africa. Women go through this all the time. Women are not safe, but most of the time it's the rape or the assault is committed by people that they know and they are familiar with. It's a very sad situation. However, with the things that were mentioned, like Mohadi mentioned in the freedom of expression, we see how more and more women are speaking up against it. And I think this is what is bringing it a little bit more to the forefront, that people should not suffer alone, or even that stigma. But in the past, if someone was being abused in a relationship or in a home, they would feel bad and think it's their fault. But with the freedom of expression, it is allowing that, the victims can know that there are places where they can receive help. But also that if they keep quiet, now they're seeing on social media how other people, their story did not end well. So they need to also say something in order for them to come out of, that abusive environment. It can be a relationship, or even if it's in a home, you might need to leave that home in order to keep yourself safe. So when we look at stats, like the year 2018, 2019, they were looking at about 50,000, just over 50,000 cases being reported of gender-based violence. And when we went to the next quarter, the next year, when they looked at it, said these numbers are increasing year on year. Now when we look at 2018, 2019, we were at like 52,000, close to 52,500. When you go on to the next year, it's going up to 53,000. And each and every year, there are more cases of gender-based violence being reported. Now, could it be that there are more cases reported because there's more crimes being committed? Or perhaps it's the freedom of expression, that women are not keeping quiet anymore, but also these crimes are becoming more and more violent. And that is a big concern for us in South Africa. Kids are going through this, children who we cannot say they did anything wrong or there's any reason for that to happen. Young kids are being raped in their homes by people that we trust, family, friends, uncles, fathers, grandfathers.
Those who were expected to protect.
It's a really devastating thing. And something about, I'm going to speak about rape, for example. When someone, let's say you were hijacked, your car was stolen, your home was burgled, something happened to you. You are able to, save money, fix your home, buy another car. But when it comes to rape, I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, I have my theories, but they are not scientifically based. But when someone has gone through rape and a form of domestic violence, where they were beaten for many years, they were belittled for many years, that person will self-destruct. A rape victim, you find them, they will go out and do things that do not benefit them, because it's almost like they're trying to wash away what is inside of them or to take it away somehow. It's just something, I'm going to say evil. It's just an evil thing that takes place when someone has gone through this type of violation, such as rape. It's really devastating. it is unfortunate because we have a beautiful country with a rich heritage, with a rich history, but unfortunately it is being, overshadowed by this rape capital status that we have somehow, received in a country such as South Africa.
And when we speak about gender-based violence, we don't necessarily speak about the stats we have out there or what we read in media. We are all trauma counselors. So we deal with the matter almost on daily basis in our communities, in our churches. Of course, the more we bring up awareness campaigns, and we do, it's not enough. So our work is more to try to bring peace to the victim, to help the victim to rehabilitate and move on.